welcome back to another episode here at GoRails. In this episode, we're going to look at how to handle one-time payments or one-time purchases using the PayGem and Stripe. So let's dig in. So to get started, I have a simple Rails application that I spun up here. It's very basic at the moment, but let's look at it real quick what we have as a starting point before we get into implementing Pay and Stripe and integrating with that with our application here. So I'm going to open up VS Code here, and yes, I'm using VS Code. I normally use Vim, but I realize a lot of folks are most likely using VS Code, and so I'm going to use it here so that it's hopefully familiar ground. Although my VS Code setup is probably very different from yours. I have the like the sidebar stuff is actually over on the right hand side here. I have a lot of stuff hidden and so forth. But anyways, hopefully you feel at home here, although my color scheme is also in a light theme, so maybe I might as well should have stayed in Vim, but regardless, we're going to move forward here. Right now, in this application, we have three models. We have this user model, we have a purchase course model, and a course model, okay? So looking at these, user has secure passwords, so we do have already implemented registration and logging in, signing up, logging out. I just did that from scratch. I'm not using Devise or anything like that. You can see here we have a simple registrations controller that handles when someone signs up. And then we have the sessions controller here that uses the authenticate by in order to authenticate the user and then set the session with their ID if they are found and so forth. Also handles logging out. I also have a very simple nav bar. I didn't want to go to application controller, but while we're here, we'll see I have this current user method, okay, so that we can have access to that current user in a controller that we're going to create in this video where we'll need access to the current user. What I wanted to look at though was application layout. I have a very simple nav bar I made here that just has the links to sign up or log in unless there is already a current user. And actually, in order to do this, we need to go back to application controller and we need to make this a helper method here. So say helper method current user. All right, so that we can have this method available in our views like we're trying to use right here. All right, so that's all of our authentication and registration stuff right now that we have. Let's look at the other models, or actually let's go back to user RB. So a user has many purchase courses. They have many courses through those purchase courses. If we go look at purchase course, it's just a simple join model that joins the user in the course. And then we go look at the course model. We can see a course has many purchase courses. And then also what I've done here is said that a course has many purchasers through those purchase courses, but really the source of that information is the user association on the purchase course. So because this does not exist over on the purchase course, so it would have no idea what we're trying to query on if we did not set up this source call right here. So if that's something new to you, look into that because you can do some pretty cool things and make very nice association names. All right, so those are our three models that we have and a couple controllers. So looking at the routes, we just have resources for courses and then singular resources for registration and session. Our route is to the courses index view. All right, so with our initial walkthrough of our starting point of our Rails application out of the way, let's go ahead and start up our Rails server and go take a look at it. All right, so with our server started and our application up, we can see here's our little nav bar. We probably should not show that logout button if we don't have a current user, which we should not have right now. So let's go address that real quick. So here we can just simply add if current user, okay, just like that. And now if we refresh, we see that the logout button goes away. Now this course stuff was just all generated by a scaffold. I just ran a scaffold generator for courses and gave it some attributes, ran that. So we have full CRUD already going for us right here with the courses resource. And I don't have anything locked down right now, so anybody could sign up, come in here and start making courses. You can lock all that down later on. That's not the focus of this video. We just need something to get us going here. So with that, let's go through and make our first course. So we're going to come in here. We're going to go make a new course. Let's just call it Refactoring Rails. Okay. and then let's say clean up that code base. Okay, now in this form here, there's a field for Stripe price. Okay, so this is where we get started here. Okay, this course model is going to have, it has this string column on it that is meant to hold the price ID for this product on from your Stripe dashboard. Okay, so first thing we need to do is we need to go get something. We need to go create something so that we get a price ID that we can populate this input field with. Okay, so let's go do that over on Stripe. Okay, so over here on my Stripe dashboard, now if you don't have a Stripe account, you need to go create one so that you can get a dashboard like this. Okay, but once you're in here, I'm in test mode right now because I don't want to be doing anything, on a live account with any of this. So I have test mode on. Okay, what you want to do if you're creating a new product from scratch, you can come down here to more. Okay, and then here manage your products. There's this product catalog section. If you click into that, you can see there's a whole bunch of products right here. Okay, now these are all just dummy products that I've made just to have something to work with here. And now I've already created the Refactoring Rails product in this dashboard here. Now if you needed to make a new one, you can just go through and add new product here and fill out the information. But once you have one, if you click into it, you can see right here at the bottom, pricing. Okay, here's this API ID. Okay, and it's this price underscore big, mismatch of characters right there. Now we can copy that. Okay, and now if we go back to our form, we can paste that in, create course. Okay, done. Now that we have our course created with the Stripe price and all of its other information, now we can get started integrating Pay and Stripe and hooking all this stuff up to work. So over on the Pay repository, we're just going to go through this and we'll implement it just like I would if I was doing it for the first time. Okay, so over on the README for Pay, now over in the installation docs, we see here that we need to add some lines to our gem file. So we need Pay, okay, and if we're going to use Stripe like we are, we need the Stripe gem as well. So we'll grab those lines. Let's go over to our gem file here. I'm just going to paste those in. I'll do a little cleanup here real quick, give that a save. And now over in a new terminal tab, I'll just run bundle. All right, now going down through the documentation more, they also say, then execute bundle, which we just did. All right, now we need to copy the Pay migrations into our app. So I'll just copy this line right here. Go back to my terminal. I'll paste that in. Okay, we copied that migration in. And now we can run it. I'll just copy this since I'm right here. We'll run that migration or any other ones. Okay, and then we can see the Pay migrations have run, creating the tables that we need or that ship with Pay. Now we get into adding Pay to the model that you want to use it on. So in our application, the user model is going to be the Pay customer. Okay, so we'll add this Pay customer line to the user model. So open that up, user. Okay, and then we'll just do Pay customer. Now, it is important to note that Pay requires your model to have an email attribute. Okay, that's important to note right here. And it's because that field is required by Stripe and everyone else in order to create a customer record. So let's move on to configuration. Okay, so for configuring your application, you need to set your credentials that you can get from Stripe per environment. Okay, so right now we're working locally in our development environment. I'll just copy this command. I'm going to go back to my terminal tab. I'm going to clear it out, give us some room here. I'll paste that command in, run it. Okay, and now we see that this opens up Vim here in our credentials.yaml file. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to quickly copy these couple lines right here for Stripe. I will change all of this, paste that stuff in. And now what we need to do is go to our Stripe dashboard and get our actual credentials. Okay. Also, I just noticed that this the browser tab where we have our application running was the normal zoom level, so you probably couldn't see at first when I was typing into that very tiny form. I apologize for that. I've gone ahead and bumped up the font here for you. I'll do it a little bit more as well, just in case. So API keys, back over in our Stripe dashboard here. Okay, next to where it says test mode, you see this developers button here. We can click that link. Now you can see the developer dashboard here, and then right here you can see API keys. Now when I click over this, you will not see my keys. I'm going to blur them out of the video, but I want you to see where these things are, so I am going to click this. Okay, so clicking here we can see API keys. So publishable key, that's your public key. Okay, so you can click to copy that to the clipboard, so we'll do that. I'm going to go back to Vim, and for public key right here, I'm simply going to remove all those Y's right there, and then I'll do a set of quotes. Now I'm going to paste my public key that I just copied from my dashboard in right here, but I'm not going to show it in the video. Okay, now secret key, you can click reveal test key here in order to do so. Again, once I click this in the video, I'm going to keep it blurred out so that I'm not giving away my credentials. I'm also going to be rolling all these keys anyway, so even if you did see them, they're not going to be working any longer. They'll be totally different by the time you see this video. So with that out of the way, I'm going to go ahead and copy my secret key, and then we'll go back to that terminal tab where I have Vim open, and for private key I'm going to paste that in. Also, I'll blur it out here in the video. This signing secret is also going to be something that we are going to need to provide a value for. This signing secret is what is used to verify that the webhooks that come in from events, such like when we're checking out, such as a charge succeeded and a checkout session completed. When those events get sent over to us, they're compared with the signing secret to confirm that they were safe and they came from Stripe and they're valid. So that value we will get in a little bit once we go to start running all of the extra process that we need in order to get webhooks coming into our application. So we'll revisit that later. So for now, I'm just going to save and close Vim. Okay, so with those things out of the way, for right now, we are set up and configured and ready to move on to the next step, which is starting to build out our checkout session. All right, so back on the courses index page, I don't want to show the Stripe price here. It's not really relevant to the end user to see that. So let's go clean that up. If we go to, let's see, courses index. Okay, and that of course just renders a course partial. There we go. And let's go ahead and delete that tag there. Clean this up some. Now if we refresh, that is gone. Also, so what I want to do right here is I want to replace this link now with show this course and just have this be a link to buy this course. Okay, so let's close out this partial here. Actually, I'm going to close out that extra space there. All right, now I'll close that out. So here, instead of show this course, let's say buy this course. Okay. Now we need this to go to a different route. I don't want this to go to the course show page. I'm thinking instead what I'd want to do is maybe something like a new purchase path, or maybe do payment path. All right, so the next thing I want to do is I want to add an additional parameter in here and just say like course ID, and this will be the course.id. So the reason I want to do this is that I'm going to stick this value in the metadata of our checkout session, and that is going to be so that we can do the fulfillment part of the process after checkout has gone through and completed successfully. When we get the request back to our application, and it has the Stripe checkout session ID in the params, we'll be able to retrieve the checkout session and then be able to pull out metadata from that session so that we can say, okay, for that current user now, let's create the new purchase course record for them for this course. If that's confusing right now, you'll see it as we get into it and it'll make more sense as we go. So this is not going to work. We don't have that. And in fact, if we go refresh our page right now, it's going to blow up on us, right? So let's fix this by making a payments controller. So I'll just do, I have some aliases here. I'm just going to do RailG or RGCon, which is Rails Generate Controller. And then let's see, we want this to be our payments controller. And we're only going to need a new action here. Okay, now the other thing we need to do is I want to go to our routes file here. And instead of this, which is fine, I actually want to change this. Even though this is fine, I want to just make it kind of a little bit cleaner to me and kind of match everything else already here. So let's get rid of it, and then let's just do resources, payments, and then we only need the new action for that. And then now if we look at Rails routes payments, we can see that we now have our new payment helper there, and it goes to payments new, and the payments new controller and new action. Now let's open up that payments controller. All right, so in our blank little payments controller here, the first thing I want to do is I'm just going to have a before action to set the course Yep, just like that. And then let's go make that method here. We'll do private. We'll do def set course, and that is just going to do at course equals course dot find params course ID. Some more stuff popping up. I spelled this wrong, so let's see. Params. Okay, let's make sure to end our method there properly. All right, now in this new action here, we're going to do a couple things. So first, I'm going to call a method that we don't have right now. That's just called set checkout session. We'll do this outside this method so that we don't need to clutter it up with anything extra. All the details we can put out into that method. This method, we can just let it be, and hopefully it reads nice and clear as to what it's doing. So we want to rescue from any pay errors here. We'll grab the error, and then we can say flash alert, and then we'll just do e.message, and then we can redirect to let's just go to the root URL. Okay, and now we need to make our set checkout session method. All right, so this method is going to be the method that handles everything for us that configures the Stripe checkout session, okay? So the first thing we want to do is I'm going to say payment processor equals, and now what we want to do is we want to get the current user, okay? And then we want to say current user dot set payment processor, and then we can say Stripe. Okay. Now what this is going to do is it's going to create a pay customer record for the current user that is set to work with the Stripe payment processor. Okay. Now that we have our entity that's going to allow us to integrate with the with Stripe checkout, now we need to set up some other additional arguments that we want to pass over to our checkout session so that it configures properly. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say args, and that's going to be just a local variable that points to a hash. Okay. And now this hash object is where we're going to set all of the configuration for our checkout session. First thing I'm going to put in here is one that you may want to use. Maybe you want to allow promotion codes. Well, in order to do so, you can say allow promotion codes and set that to true. Next thing you may want is automatic tax. So you can say automatic tax, and then that needs to point to a hash object that has enabled true. Okay, just like that. Now another one that is good to implement here is consent collection, so that someone has to verify that they indeed want to give you money for whatever they are about to purchase here. This will help you with disputes later on. Hopefully you don't have any, but if you do, this will probably help you with that. So that one is called consent collection, and then we can say terms of service required. All right, another one I'm going to add in here is customer address. No, I'm sorry, customer update address auto. That way we can have their address information on their customer object in Stripe. Now that that stuff's out of the way, now we start to get into some of the real things that we'll need here. So the next thing is going to be the mode option here, and we want to set this to payment. Okay, that is what's going to allow this to be a one-time payment checkout here. The next thing I'm going to put in here is the UI mode. So UI mode, and that is going to be embedded. Okay, because we're going to use the embedded checkout flow so that we can embed the form right in our app. We don't have to redirect anyone to Stripe to the Stripe hosted option for checkout. We can keep it with us. Now the next thing we're going to do here is line items, and that's going to point to an array of hashes. Okay, now each hash inside this array represents one course in our application. So if you were building a shopping cart option, for example, where if we had a whole bunch of courses on the page and they could just go through and click, add to cart, add to cart, add to cart, and then from there they hit a checkout button from their cart, then they would route into this flow. You would want to put all of those courses in here as line items. So each one would be a hash inside this array. And what you would do is you would say price, okay, and here we're going to do at course.stripe price ID is what I believe I called that field. And then we'll set a quantity of 1, okay, and then if you had another course, you would simply come in here and do the price and quantity for that course as well, okay. So you could go through all the courses in their shopping cart and add them all to this line items array here, okay. We only have the one, so we're not going to worry about doing that, but I wanted to show you that step if you need to do something like that. Okay, next I'm going to add in the metadata. Okay, now this points to a hash, and what I'm going to say right here is course ID equals at course.id. Okay, again, this is so that once the checkout is, they hit the pay button and it goes to Stripe, we send along that metadata about what course they're buying, so that once the checkout completes successfully, we can get that checkout session back and then retrieve what course they purchased from the metadata in the checkout session. And the last thing we need here is a return URL. So where are we going to, after the user checks out and they're routed back to into our application here, where are we going here? Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to make a fulfillment URL, which does not exist yet, but we'll make that in a moment. So next, what we're going to do is now we're going to put all this stuff together, the payment processor that we have here, and all of these arguments. Now we're going to put it all together to create a checkout session. So I'm going to say at checkout session equals payment processor dot checkout, and then we will just simply pass in args and splat them out to that. So we'll give that a save. Right now this is enough to get the checkout session made, but we won't actually show anything to the user. For that, now we need to go to the next step and start implementing a little bit of JavaScript, not much at all, but a little bit, in order to get this working on the page. Before we get into the JavaScript part of this, let's go ahead and make the fulfillments controller and add the routes so that our checkout session creation doesn't blow up on us because the fulfillments URL doesn't exist. So again, I'll just say railg or rgcon, and then I'm going to make this a fulfillments controller. This only needs a show action. Now in our routes here, I'm just going to copy this line down here. What I'm actually going to do is make this a singular resource here, okay, and this will be fulfillments, and then instead of new, we only need show right here, okay. So now if we go look at our Rails routes here for fulfill, we should see that fulfillments route goes to the fulfillment show, and I forgot we had this one that was generated by the generator up here on line 5, so let's get that one out of here. And if we rerun now we can see fulfillments. Now I did the singular resource here because I don't need the ID parameter in the URL here, and that's actually going to not work in our case if we were to have that, because Stripe is going to be sending back to this URL, but it won't be passing along any ID that we would use there. What it is going to send back to us is the session ID, but it sends that to us differently. You know, it's not going to be sending us any fulfillment ID for like some, if we had a fulfillment model, it's not going to be sending us back the ID for a given model, okay? But it does send us the Stripe session, the checkout session ID. Now that we have the bulk of that done, over on the Stripe docs for the embedded checkout setup, you'll see a lot of what we just did is spoke about in here, okay? Remember here we made the mode payment, line items, UI mode embedded, just like they are doing. We just did this. We supplied the return URL, and you can see here that it talks about the checkout session ID. That variable is sent back along to that URL, so we can get it out of params. It'll come back as session underscore ID. We've already defined the products to sell. That's how we got the price ID for that course that we made. We've already done this. Now we are here at this step. So mounting checkout. So the first thing we want to do is right over here, like they say here, we would need to add this script tag for the Stripe JavaScript to our head of the application layout. So I'm going to go to layouts, application. Oh, already in it. Over in the head tag here, let's just go here and paste that in right there at the bottom. Okay, so that part is done. So now what we need to do is we need to give some sort of div on the page with the ID of checkout. But we're going to do it a little bit differently than they state here in the docs. So back over here in our editor, what I'm going to do is open up the payments new view. Okay, I'm just going to clear all this out of here. And then what we're going to do now is we're going to add our code in order to wire this all up to get the Stripe JavaScript working. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to throw a little ERB right there, and then I'm going to say tag.div, and now I'm going to pass data to that, and that's going to be a hash here. Okay, and now the first thing that we're going to do is hook this up to a Stripe stimulus controller. Okay, so we'll say controller Stripe. Now we're going to supply two values here that we're going to use in our Stripe stimulus controller in order to initialize the JavaScript and get the checkout session showing up on the page. So the first thing we're going to type in right here is going to be Stripe public key value, just like that. And now we're going to pull this from pay Stripe dot public key, and this is going to read that value out of the credentials that we put in earlier when we got our API keys from Stripe. The next thing we're going to do is the Stripe client secret value. Okay, now this actually comes from the checkout session that we initialized right here in this flow here on line 35 right here, where we call payment processor.checkout and we pass in the args. When that goes through and creates that checkout session successfully for us, it gives us back client secret there in the checkout session that we have access to. So back over here, we can just say at checkout session dot client secret. All right, so let's pop back over to the Stripe documentation here. Okay, now we're starting to get into the JavaScript stuff. So let's go create our stimulus controller in order to perform all of these steps here. All right, so back over in my terminal here, I also have an alias for the stimulus generator, which is just rgstim. And then I'm going to make a controller named Stripe. All right, so we've got our Stripe controller.js file created. Let's go back to our editor and open that up. Okay, and here's our Stripe controller. First thing I want to do is we need to set up the values for what we're passing right over here. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll come inside here and we'll just say static values. Okay, and what are these values? Okay, let's go back and look. So public key and client secret. So we'll say public key, and that's going to be a string, and then client secret, and that is also a string. All right, so with that done, we'll come down to this connect method here, and then we're going to do this async. Now, what do we need to do in connect? Let's go back to the Stripe documentation here. So let's see, we need to initialize the Stripe.js, and the way they do that here is by doing const stripe equals stripe and then passing in that public key. Okay, so what we can do on our end is say this.stripe equals stripe and then pass in the this.public key value. All right, so step one there done. Let's go look at the next thing here. So the next thing is to fetch a checkout session. Now we don't actually need to do this step here because we have already created the checkout session when you hit the new action of the payments controller. That's where we create our checkout session. So this part is already done. And here they're getting the client secret and returning that back. We don't have to do that. We already have that client secret, right? So we can actually go on to this step right here. So see, I'm actually going to copy some of this, not all of it. I'm not going to get the const part there. We'll grab that. Back in our editor here on this next line, we'll say this dot and then paste that in. And then now what we'll do is we'll come up here and we will say client secret is this dot client secret value. Okay, good. We're almost there. The next thing we need to do is, I believe we need to mount our checkout. Let's see, so initialize, yep. Okay, so here we init embed checkout and then mount checkout. So here we can say this dot checkout dot mount, and then we need to tell it the target to mount to. Now it would be the div with that checkout ID on it, but actually in this case we can actually say this dot element, and it will be that div element here that this is all occurring on. Okay, that's that's the element we're going to use. So that's why we can pass this dot element in right here. Finally, let's make sure to do some cleanup here. So do disconnect. Okay, and then we'll just say this dot checkout dot destroy. All right, so if all has gone well and we've done everything correct up to this point, we should be able to get to the checkout page. So let's go sign up a new user. Let's do user at one.com. Password, we'll just throw some stuff in there. Okay, successfully signed up. We are signed in. Now, if we click buy this course, we should hit our payments new action. That'll build the checkout session for us. And then the JavaScript kicks in on the new page when it's rendering there, and we should see the checkout form eventually come into view there. So we'll do that, and you can see I have a typo already, so fulfillments URL is what that should be. And that is, let's see, that is back over in here where we're making our checkout session. Oops. Let's do fulfillments URL. Okay, now let's refresh our page. Okay, we're not getting the error anymore, but we're getting a new error now. Can't find variable Stripe. Let's go check out our Stripe controller. Yes, right here, this needs to be this.stripe.init embedded checkout. My apologies for that. So let's refresh here. Now we can see a rather large checkout form. That's because I'm zoomed in so much. If we back that out a little bit, we can see here kind of what it normally looks like. So we can see here we successfully made it to the checkout screen. Our price is $200. Here's the email of the user that is attempting to purchase this, and they would go through and enter their information and then be redirected to that fulfillment URL. So we need to go there next and handle the fulfillment step for this customer. So back in our code, let's open up the fulfillment controller, okay, the show action, and this is where we're going to do the code to retrieve the checkout session and then, fulfill or process that customer's order. So what I'm going to do in here is say session equals Stripe checkout session. There it is. And then we can say dot retrieve. And then that needs this hash passed to it, which will have the ID of the session in it. So, and we'll get that from the session ID parameter value. Okay, so we have the session. Now let's get the course from the metadata. So we'll say course equals course.find, and then we want to find that from the session metadata dot course ID. Okay. Again, remember that's the property we set over in our payments controller here. Let's see right here in the metadata. And then now that you have your information, now you can fulfill the order however you need to do so in your system. In our case, what we want to do is we want to take the current user and then we want to add a new purchased course for them. So purchased courses, oh boy, courses.create. And then the course will be the course that we got from the metadata. And then what we could do is we could redirect them to the courses URL. And we can say notice, thanks for purchasing. And then we could do a little interpolation right here of the course dot name, or no, course dot title. Additionally, what we could do is we can rescue from Stripe invalid request error, and then we could say something like redirect to, let's just go to root URL, and we can give an alert and say something about sorry, we could not process your payment, and then we could give that message, e.message to the user. Okay, we're just about ready to hit the checkout session. One thing I want to do now, I talked about this earlier in the video, is set up webhooks so that when this runs through, the customer is going through this process and they check out, yes, they will be routed back through our fulfillments controller so that we can set them up with that fulfill that order immediately. But We can also listen to any additional webhooks that come in, such as the charge succeeded, and that the checkout session completed, and log all that stuff into our database and keep it. Pay handles that all for us. All we have to do is start the Stripe CLI locally at least, so we can get the webhooks working in our local setup here, and add the webhook signing secret into our credentials. Now, in order to know how to do that here, if you come into the pay documentation here and we go into Stripe, and then we go into Stripe checkout, or I'm sorry, webhooks, you'll see here you can learn more about information about the Stripe CLI by clicking this. If you don't have it installed, or how to log into it, like you can learn all that from here. It's very straightforward. But once you have it done, what you can do is run this command here. So there's a endpoint mounted in your application already by the PayGem that lands this route in there, so that when webhooks come across, they get sent here, and we or Pay will process that and handle it appropriately. So if we copy that and we come back to new terminal tab, if we run this, we'll see, it goes through some steps of getting ready, and then it prints out your webhook signing secret. I'm going to blur it out in this video here so that you don't see it and try to use it. But what we can do is copy it and then go back and open up our credentials and add that into that last place where we have the holder for signing secret, but we don't have any information. So I'm going to go do that now, and then we'll come back and then we'll go through and try this thing out for real. All right, so let's go ahead and do this checkout, and let's see if everything works. So 4242 is the magic number if you were not sure before. If you've never done this, this is a test card you can use with Stripe checkout here in development mode to test and run this stuff. Building address, we'll go ahead and 123 Main Street this. Baton Rouge sounds good to me. We'll check this. And now I'm going to go to my server logs here from Rails app. I'm just going to clear it out so we can see. I'll do the same for the Stripe webhook stuff there. Now if we'll hit this, we'll hit pay, it'll process. If we did this all well, we should end up right back here on the course index page with a message saying thanks for purchasing Refactoring Rails. Now if we go back to the logs where we were looking or watching the webhooks, we can see that we got one for the charge succeeded, payment intent succeeded, payment intent created, checkout session completed, so forth. And if we look at our Rails logs here, we can see we did a bunch of stuff with webhooks. Pay took care of that for us. We can see we hit our fulfillments controller. We got that session ID. We went and processed that. And so now if we open up a new terminal tab here and we go into the Rails console, if we do user.first, okay, that should be that user. I'll save that to a variable. Now if we do user.purchase courses, we should see that in the list twice. That's because I purchased this course twice, one test run and then one just now from earlier. So we can see here we have indeed purchased that course. If we say u.courses, we can see that indeed we bought that course twice. Additionally, if we look at course and we do course.first, I'll save that off. If we look at purchasers, we should see that user has purchased it twice, and we do. Now this brings up a good point. You may want to, depending on what you're trying to sell one time, you may want to not allow someone to purchase things multiple times. So you need to handle that logic in your application when they're trying to go buy a course. You need to be redirecting them or doing something to say, hey, looks like you've actually already bought this course, and maybe just redirect them to it or whatever. If it's something else, like maybe they're buying shirts, let them buy it as many times as they want, So with that, we're done here. That's all it takes to get the one-time payments with Stripe and Pay working in your Rails application. So with that, we'll leave it here, and I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned a lot, and I will see you in the next lesson. Take care.